Thanks to the AICPA for sponsoring this. And I just really want to acknowledge all of you on the webcast today that have come on, right? You're really the leaders of our profession that have gone and sought out joining a professional membership, that are in making this investment in an hour in your future. And I'm just delighted to support you at this formative time of your career during a time that might feel a little wobbly and a little shaky. So before I dive in, what I want to let you know up front is, Evan mentioned, I'm an actualization coach. And people really get confused about what coaching is and what coaching isn't. Much like when you say, hey, I want to become an accountant, and people are going to ask you all kinds of questions about how to file their taxes. And maybe you want to do something different, forensic accounting, or you want to be an auditor for SEC companies. Very, very different. So when I work with my clients who might be as soon in their career as, I want to pass the CPA exam and I need help with the non-technical part, I need help with the goal setting and the accountability, all the way up through the leaders of organizations, managing partners, leading different divisions, I'm working with them in two ways. And that is, one, helping them go within themselves, really understanding what's most important to them and what is their biggest vision for the group and the team that they're leading, or their own career path. And then the next piece is helping them to create a plan to get them there. So in our webcast today, I'm going to give you some insights and some frameworks and some information, but I also want to provide the experience of coaching for you, because no one understands better than you what it's like to live in your world today, right? No one knows what it means to, whatever you've been going through. I heard this brilliant metaphor that with the pandemic, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats, right? So you know how to navigate your boat best. Again, I'm going to give you some tools and some perspectives, but also invite you to kind of really say, what does this all mean for me? So as Evan mentioned at the beginning, I started my career in a pretty unique time. And I want to start our conversation today to share a little bit about my experience entering into the profession. And as I do so, I really want to be clear, I'm not here to talk about Amber Setter. I'm sharing my experience so as to inspire you to chase and pursue your dreams, no matter what the circumstances are. Because when I graduated and started my career, the circumstances weren't so positive, maybe similar to what's going on right now. So I earned my bachelor's in accounting from San Jose State University, and I sought out my first accounting internship while living in the Silicon Valley. As you can see on the screen, I did a little timeline here. I had my first taste of campus recruiting while I was going for an internship in the spring of 2002. And at that time, the economy was recovering from 9/11. So 9/11 happened, there was a lot of financial uncertainty, and the dot-com bubble had burst. I actually listened to a podcast this morning, and I don't know if you're all familiar with Bulletproof, and Dave Asprey is pretty inspirational. He has a podcast, and he said in that era, at 26 years old, he had earned $6 million and thought he was set for life, and he lost all $6 million of those dollars when the dot-com bubble burst. So that gives you a flavor for how that economic climate was in that little bubble of America. These two factors combined meant that the Silicon Valley job market went from these all-time highs and thriving and so much possibility to just this economic devastation, and good jobs were very, very scarce. And then this really interesting thing happened in the accounting profession. So you might have heard about the fraud at Enron, which led to the eventual demise of Arthur Andersen. So Andersen closed its offices in August of 2002. And in a short span, the accounting profession went from being highly regarded and just, untouchable, high integrity, to a source of endless jokes about paper shredding. It was just such an anomaly for the accounting profession. So a fun fact about me is, in that spring of 2002, I interviewed for an internship in tax with Andersen, and I thought the interview went well. I thought I nailed it. It went so great. I had a personal connection to the partner I interviewed with, and I didn't get an internship and offer. And I was really perplexed. I was like, what happened there? Well, it turns out that no one had an internship offer. No summer internships happened at that firm. And in the fall, there was actually, or I should say in August, no one at that firm even had a job anymore. That firm went under. Big Five went to Big Four. So fortunately for me, even though all of these circumstances were happening, I got an internship offer in audit with EY. And this parlayed into an offer for full-time employment. But I did something unusual. I decided to turn that offer down. And given the state of the economy and the profession, everyone thought I was a little bit crazy for turning that offer down. And by everyone, I mean like my family members were questioning my decision, my peers in Beta Alpha Psi are like, what are you doing? Even my accounting professors questioned, why would I turn down a full-time job offer that was secure at a great firm? But what I realized in that experience was my heart was telling me I didn't want to be an auditor forever. Like there was something about that that just didn't move the needle for me. And so I turned it down. And as I prepared for our event today and kind of went through this, I thought, wow, I can understand now why everyone thought I was crazy, right? Like it was a secure bet. It was a sure thing. But again, my heart told me there was something else available to me. So I turned the offer down. I went through the campus recruiting process again, and this time I was looking exclusively for full-time positions. I managed to get 2 offers. So I wanted to point that out because in that short amount of time, right, from when I interviewed and went through recruiting the first time, like really, really hard to, hey, a few months later, things were a little more stable. I ended up with 2 job offers. I had my heart set on a prominent local firm that offered a rotational program. And that meant I didn't have to choose audit or tax before actually trying out the work. And that really appealed to me. So I still can tell you, I remember this moment when I got the offer from the partner calling me on the phone. I had just come out of the gym and I was sitting in a parking lot on my cell phone. I was like, I got that job, right? I followed my heart. I took a courageous risk and it paid off for me. It paid off so well that I graduated. The firm offered me, I graduated in December and the firm said, do you want to start in January or September? I felt like 2 weeks off wasn't going to be sufficient to start right away. So I opted for September. And then I had a nice 8-month window of time between my graduation date and my start date. What I did with that time was I spent a little bit of time working a tax busy season for a very small firm with 10 people, got to see something really small, saved my money, and then I went and lived in Italy for the summer. I got a job working as a nanny and I ended up living in a castle on the Amalfi Coast overlooking the Mediterranean. I took my CPA exam review books, I studied for the exam, and I eventually started my full-time position that September of 2003. I ended up working for that firm where I followed my heart to for a decade and had a phenomenal experience with them. So I again wanted to share this because I get that there's these market challenges. And I'm not here again to talk just about me. I want to inspire you to chase your dreams, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what maybe your parents think you should do or your professors or your peers. And I want you to just stop now where I'm going to ask you a coaching question. So coaching gives you big ideas and then asks you to find, what does it mean for you? So when you heard that story, what did you maybe hear for yourself? Perhaps you like the idea of taking time off, between your graduation date and your full-time employment start date to travel or study for the CPA exam. Or maybe you wondered, like, do I really want to be an auditor, or is a large firm best for me? Is a small firm? Is industry? What might my heart be telling me? And I want to actually have all of you on the webcast today share what you heard for yourself in the story using a feature called Poll Everywhere. So you want to grab your cell phone out. Normally when I do a webinar, I want you to put them away. I want you to actually grab your phone and I'm going to have you text your responses in. And to do that, to join the session, you first need to text Amber Setter 777 and you'll see you text that to the phone number 22333. And when you text that in, again, you want to text to the number 22333 and type in the message Amber Setter 777. Once you do that, you will get a confirmation that you have joined. And then once you join, you are able to go ahead and text your response in. So what did you hear for yourself? And as this functionality gets going, we'll see everybody's answers start popping up on the screen. If for some reason you're having any technical difficulties, you can just go ahead and write those in the chat. And Evan, if you can keep your eye out and let me know.
Thank you, I will.
And oops, let me go back. It was interesting. I see some of the responses coming in on the wrong screen. So give me a second. Are you able to see the responses coming in by chance? You're not. Okay. One quick technical difficulty I'm working through here. Let's try that. Are you able to see them? Oh, this is so not fun because I get to see them and they're really cool. Hold on. I apologize. Technology is amazing when it works and it's a little funky when it doesn't. Okay, well, I apologize. I don't want to get lost in technology, but I'll read some of them. It was the opportunity to go spend a summer in Italy, take time studying for the CPA exam. Let me see some of the others that came up. I've got 21 responses and I'm just so bummed that you guys can't see these. Let's see if I can, I'm trying still, I'm not giving up. 24 responses. Let me try one. All right, I'm gonna keep going. I'll read them to you next time. I apologize. And one of the things, Evan, if it works, is we could actually send them out to the participants after. And for the next poll, I'll try to get this fixed. So thanks for playing. Thanks for hearing something for yourself and seeing that there's a lot of possibility, even though it feels like, well, this isn't how I planned for this year to go. None of us planned for how 2020 would be, but what we can do is think about, well, where do we go from here? And so that's what we're gonna look at now is where can you go from here? Because what we know about life is that the only constant is change, right? We've all probably faced some adversities up until this moment, and we're going to continue to face challenges. And resiliency is your ability to just be able to recover quickly from challenges, right? Like we say in coaching, where every peak has two valleys. I love that. Every peak has two valleys, and resiliency is the ability to pull yourself out of a valley or see that someone else is in it and help pull them out. Like that's part of being a leader. So what I want to do now is take you through some key principles I use as a professional coach when I'm working with leaders of this profession. So one of the things coach does is to help people bridge the gap. Go from point A to point B. Where are you and where do you want to be? And once you see the gap, you can come up with a plan to get there. Here I am, I someday want to be a CPA, but I don't know what that means. I need to understand all the licensure process, right? Or in school, okay, I want to graduate with an accounting degree or an information systems degree. What are all the things I need to do? Once you know what you need to do, it's really easy to get into action, but it's a matter of what is that end goal? So let's look a little bit about where you might be, because we're all in a little bit of the unknown. So I'd like to really bring to your attention that you might be feeling a little bit of discomfort. And so I found this wonderful article from the Harvard Business Review, and they published it on March 23rd, so it's very real time. And the article was titled, "That Discomfort That You're Feeling is Grief." And in it, they interviewed somebody named David Kessler, and he is the world's foremost expert on grief. And in this article, he suggests that we're all feeling different types of grief right now. So we might feel like the world has changed. We know that some elements are temporary, like, maybe shelter in place or quarantine is temporary, but we also know that things might be forever different. So just as the way that 9/11 shaped our airport experience, we know that there's knowing we have that some of the things that we've had in life are going to be changed forever. And we've all experienced some loss of normalcy, right? We have fear of an economic toll, the loss of connection and spending time with friends and family. And this is hitting us, and we might be very well grieving at an individual level and a collective level. And we're really not used to all this kind of collective grief in the air. And not only are we grieving maybe what we've already lost, like, maybe you had an internship that's been canceled, or maybe a graduation ceremony that's been canceled, but we're also grieving what was. And what that's called is anticipatory grief, where we're worried about or we're grieving what the future held for us, what we saw as a possibility. So an easy way to see this is if you've ever had a family member that's maybe been diagnosed with some kind of, imagine cancer, and there's a fear or uncertainty around death. When someone gets a dire diagnosis, we might have these, oh my gosh, if I lose this person, you start to feel this anticipatory grief. And we're having that right now, right? There's a storm coming. We know there's something out there that we don't really know. And with this virus, it's kind of confusing for people. So our primitive mind knows something as bad is happening, right? That fight flight part. And I'm reaching back here because that's literally where it's located in your brain, but we can't really see some of this stuff. But what happens underneath the surface is it breaks our sense of safety. And when we feel this loss of safety, it creates that grief. So to support you in moving through your grief, Kessler suggests that you name the grief. And I really like these words, and I thought his words are much more powerful than mine. And so what he says is that there is something powerful about naming this experience as grief. It helps us feel what's inside of us. So many have told me in the past week, I'm telling my coworkers, I'm having a hard time, or I cried last night. And when you name it, right, naming this feeling, you feel it and it moves through you. You're not holding it in anymore. Emotions need motion, and it's important we acknowledge what we go through. So I'm telling you about the power of that. And what I want you to do now is to actually use the poll everywhere to name your experience of grief, to be able to write in and experience and name what you've been feeling. And I want you to know all feelings are okay, right? Some of my clients are having days where they're like really excited and they see a lot of possibility. And sometimes they're having days where they're crying. And right now I'm feeling happy because I see that Pull Everywhere is working this time. So let's have at it and see what's coming up for people. What's in the space? Anxious, frustration, isolated, more frustration, stress, helpless, confusion, sad, paranoid, disappointment, enraged, someone put a test in for us. You know, I really appreciate what you're bringing and saying and naming. It's very courageous to say, hey, I'm feeling anxious or frustrated or sad. I want you to know you're not the only one. I did a webinar in about mid-March, which was for CPAs earning CPE, and I had about 800 people on there. And we talked about anxiety and depression, and I'm going to do a little bit of that in this webinar. But what I want you to know is that in that experience, those people that were online, and these are the adults, those who are out adulting in the world, 41% of them said that they were experiencing anxiety, 6% said they were experiencing depression, and another percent said they were experiencing some other form of a mental illness. So 48% of those adults working in our profession were having these feelings of uncertainty, right? So it's, we've never lived and led through a pandemic. And I think all of these feelings are natural. So again, back to David Kessler, when you name it and you feel it, it moves through you. You release it and you can get out of that valley and come back up to your peak again. So let's continue on with a few more observations that I'm noticing in the systems and the work that I'm doing. So again, kind of exploring where might you be right now, point A. I wanted to share this quote from my daughter. She's 5 years old. She's turning out to be one of my greatest teachers in life. And so a mere 2 weeks after shelter in place took place where I live in San Diego, my daughter said this to me, "Mommy, my heart is cracking. It needs glue. I miss my friends." And I almost like fell over, right? Like there's a part of it that as a mom, I feel bad when my daughter says her heart is cracking and she needs glue. That breaks my heart. And I also completely related to what she said, right? Like I was missing my friends. I was missing the laughter that we share over meals. I miss seeing my clients that are here locally where we walk and talk. I missed my manicurist, right? I missed the person who did my nails for 14 years. Like I missed going to my spin class every Monday night and hearing the inspiration from my spin instructor and seeing those people in that community. I had a cracking heart as well. And that was only 2 weeks into this. So what I feel like is going on now is that we're all sort of in maybe about the 3rd month of this, and we don't maybe know when it might end. And we're telling ourselves, hey, I've adjusted to this new normal. But I don't really believe we have. I call this, and I have an image here, that there's still like this pandemic elephant in the room. And it represents different things for different people, but when that elephant's in the room, it is influencing our thoughts and our feelings. So oftentimes when I coach people, I use a metaphor of the iceberg. In the iceberg, there's 10% you can see and 90% that you can't see. And that elephant is underneath the surface. All that grief, that uncertainty, that my heart is cracking, I miss my friends, it is still there. Just as a fun little aside, this visual right here was created by one of my clients. She's a senior audit associate. She's a CPA and an amazing creative artist. So I'm always working with my people to be their best expression in the world. And through coaching her, I was like, I have this image, will you mock this up for me? And she created this beautiful image here. But I want you to think about that. Like, how might you be you for yourself or other people saying like, oh, I've adjusted to the new normal. I've got it handled. But there's really this elephant in the room. There's really this big pandemic that is kind of still in your space and maybe having you feeling all those feelings that you're feeling. So along those lines, I thought I'd share one of my favorite quotes, and it comes from Wayne Dyer. And he says that when you squeeze an orange, you'll always get orange juice to come out. That what comes out is what's inside. Again, what comes out when you're squeezed is what is inside. and that this same logic applies to you. So when life squeezes you or puts pressure on you and out of you comes anger or hatred or bitterness or tension or depression or anxiety, that's what's inside. And the reason this quote resonates so much is that what I had an experience in my life when I was taking the CPA exam where I was struggling and I was failing, and I didn't know how to fail. I'm the kind of person who sets a goal, works really hard, achieves the goal. And that's not how the exam went for me. I kept failing. And when I was under that pressure, a lot of like anger and frustration and anxiety came out of me. So after I passed the exam, I was like, woo, I've got some stuff to work on for myself, right? Like, I don't like that when I got squeezed, that came out of me. And so that's how I really got into coaching, which is amazing. I had to go have a breakdown to have a breakthrough to become a coach, but that was my experience. And I share this quote with you when you think of what's going on at an individual level for yourself, but perhaps on a greater level. So COVID-19 has definitely presented a lot of uncertainty and created a lot of anxiety and fear. And we were asked to isolate ourselves, and we watched our financial economy come to a halt. And this has created, like, again, a lot of pressure either at the individual or the collective level. And what I'm seeing, or what I'm suspecting, as the more recent events of racism in our country and the killings of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and I don't know if you all heard of someone named Botham Jean. So he was from Dallas and killed by a white police officer in the wintertime. He was an employee of PwC, a member of our profession who came from another country to have a greater life, right? These are countless other lives that we have lost, and it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking, and yet it's revealing. And so when my heart aches and I don't have the answers, I come back to questions, and I come back to what I call anchors, these things that are really kind of these guiding principles for me. So one such anchor is this quote. So I'm very saddened to see what's coming out when America's being squeezed. And yet I also am hopeful from my own experience that when I had a breakdown, that there's an awakening and that there's a breakthrough to be had. So hopefully, you can take something, maybe learning from this quote, and apply it to your own life and give you some perspective. I want to touch a little bit on mental health in times of a crisis, and especially when I saw all of you share everything that you've been feeling, whether it's about, the anxiousness and frustration, to let you know that these feelings are okay and that these feelings are normal. And then we're going to get to thriving. We're going to get to like reclaiming the you. But again, I want you to we call this in coaching normalizing your experience. You're not the only one that might be feeling anxious or frustrated or depressed or whatever. And if you know you're not the only one that's swimming in that boat, it helps you to start climbing out, right? To get more anchored in, okay, I fell off the horse and I can get back up on it. So I want to do a little education here and share two resources that I'm sharing all the time with my executive clients, even before this pandemic. This is super, super helpful stuff for you to know. So let's just kind of look at what we know about what might happen when there's something like a pandemic. So experience with past natural disasters has taught us, and a past natural disaster might be an earthquake or a hurricane or a big pandemic. We haven't really seen a pandemic, but other natural disasters. But it shows us that there's a rise in suicide that happens the months after the immediate physical dangers of the disaster have passed. And so there was a report published in April by two foundations that support mental health issues. And they estimated that unless steps are taken now, right, that we elevate consciousness and awareness around mental health issues, that we're going to have an increase in deaths of despair from either alcohol or drugs or suicide. And that this data also suggests that anxiety and depression rises when financial crisis occurs, right? So we know that it's probable that this we don't do something and we don't, right, try to watch out for one another, watch out for ourselves or others, that the data is going to say, hey, we're going to have more anxiety and depression. So that is COVID related and racism related. Now, even before that, I want you to know that this has been a conversation going on in our profession. So on the left, you're going to see this image of the Journal of Accountancy magazine, which is published by the AICPA. And again, huge kudos to the AICPA for raising awareness around a very important issue. So in this magazine, they had a great article that highlighted one CPA story of living and working with depression. And I really applaud this author's courage and, as he said, reluctantly sharing his story, because when he does that, he normalizes these mental health issues in our profession. And one of the things that he stated, his name is Mark J. Cohen, a CPA and a JD, said that no matter where you work, there's a good chance that depression is right in front of you. It's in yourself, a colleague, a friend, or a client. Most of us don't see it, and if we do see it, we don't talk about it. I write about depression not as an expert on mental health, but as an accountant who lives with it. Again, such a beautiful quote, because we need to keep an eye out for depression in our own self, in our colleagues, in our roommates, and our friends, and when you start working with your clients that you serve. Another thing that I wanted to bring your attention to was around anxiety. So you can read an article or you can watch a video, and I love this video. There's a docu-series on Netflix called The Mind Explained. There are 6 vignettes. It's 20 minutes for each one, and there's a great one on anxiety. And I always share this one with the people that I work with, because they talk about anxiety and they use this really funny cartoon that shows what the human brain goes through when it thinks about the April 15th deadline. So when I did my accounting degree, I didn't learn about emotion and money, but emotions and money go hand in hand, because money gives people a sense of security. And so the human brain, when it thinks about money or the April 15th deadline, the beautiful metaphor in this particular video is that what happens in the brain is that it imagines that it's like responding to the April 15th deadline, or the idea about it, as if it was a warthog being chased by a lion. So you're going to graduate, you're going to get your accounting degree, you're going to understand all these principles, and then you're going to meet with a client, and what's going on for them is that they're responding like they're being chased by a lion when they walk into their office or they show up in Zoom. And that means all of the blood is rushing to their legs so that they can run away and their pupils are dilated. But what you really need is for them to be calm and grounded and have the blood flowing to their brain so they can hear these complex principles that you're explaining to them, so that they are in their, ability to have strategic thinking and make sound business decisions. So it's a great one for you to watch and think about when you're going to be leading your clients, whether there's a pandemic or not, but also to understand about what goes on with anxiety. So some of the facts about anxiety is that it's the most common mental illness, and about 30% of humans are destined to be impaired with anxiety. And I would guess that number might be a little bit higher given what's going on in the world. As a coach, people bring all their stuff to me. They get to bring all their anxious thoughts. They get to drive the agenda. They say, this is what I want to talk about. I'm nervous about this, or I don't have clarity about this. And by the end of the call, much like that experience where you shared your feelings, you just let it out. And then from there, you're a lot smoother surface and able to be of better service to others. So just rounding out the conversation about mental health during these times, there is an impact of racism on mental health, right? And there's this great quote that Shelley gave me in preparing for this of, it's okay to not be okay. And what I want you to think about in terms of for yourself or for other people, right? Like, what is the difference between maybe having a bad day or having a series of bad days where I'm really feeling depressed, or I'm just paralyzed by worry or feelings of, panic? It's kind of like a roller coaster, right? It's okay to have a dip and then you go back up. Every peak has 2 valleys. But when you're just really stuck in a peak, or someone else is really stuck in a peak, that might be somewhere that you want to get some extra help. The other thing I just want to put in this space here is specific to racism, right? I'm learning how to be a better scholar about this, how to have a better way of being about it, how to be more supportive. So something that I'm personally doing is, as a person who is non-Black, a female Caucasian, is I'm reaching out to Black past colleagues or clients and just saying, like, how is your experience right now? How can I support you? You know, how might I be able to help? Because I really want to be a force of positive change. And that might just be something that you might consider doing yourself. But again, wanted to just draw the attention to lots of stuff in the system, and feeling these feelings is completely normal. If you are feeling any of these feelings, or you're noticing like, hey, my roommate or someone in my life is maybe having anxiety, depression, here's what getting help could look like. One is connecting online. So maybe people just need more community, like seeing friends and family by Zoom, or different support groups. So there are a myriad of support groups. You know, people always think of 12-step work for all different kinds of things, whether it's alcoholism or spending or different things. Like, there's all these communities where people, it's a safe space for people to talk about feelings. And I just met with a friend last night who's like, I'm making a gratitude meetup group, because we know that when we focus on everything that we're grateful for, it brings us out of that valley, right? So maybe you want to even create your own group and creating this connected community online. You can seek therapy, teletherapy, meaning it's over the phone, or group therapy. As a coach, that's a lot of what I do. There's a little bit of a distinction between therapy and coaching. Coaching is much more oriented to action, and therapy is a lot of talking about, you know, how you feel. And in coaching, we pair both of them. But all of us that are light workers in this way, we do that work remotely. For me, it's very rare. I shouldn't say very rare, but I don't always have local clients. You might want to create a new routine for yourself. I know in this pandemic, the ways that I took care of myself, right? My Monday night spin class, gone. My hot yoga class that I love, gone. I had to create new self-care routines for myself. And then the other piece is that financial security. You know, maybe you need to seek some kind of financial help, because in the hierarchy of human needs, that security is very important. So don't be afraid to ask and receive support. Okay, so what I want to have you do now is getting to that point B, right? Shifting your mindset. What do you want to create, and how might you create it? What will that look like, right? So I wanted to spend a lot of time on point A, where are you at? Because if you've never lived through economics, this destabilization, like how I started my career. This is like my third rodeo. This is my third time I've seen the market go down, and I know it's going to go up, and it's okay for me. So I really wanted to drill into where you might be to understand it. And now we're going to look at point B. Where do you want it? What do you want life to look like, and how do you get there? So resilience, again, is defined as your capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, right? And one thing, that anticipatory grief, is your mind going to the future. Oh no, the worst, the worst, the worst. And to calm yourself, you want to come into the present, and you want to let go of what you can't control, and you want to focus on what you can control. So you might consider making a list for yourself. And I actually got this idea from one of my clients. The cool thing about being a coach to really smart people is they teach me things. So make a list. These are all the things I can't control. I can't control that classes are online, internships canceled, shelter in place quarantine, Prometric is closed. I can't control the opinions and actions of others. I can't control if someone wears a mask or not. Why get frustrated about what you can't control? It's kind of a waste of your energy. You can instead rechannel that energy into what you can control. What you can control, and I put inner self. So inner self is comprised of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your outlook. And so whenever I, Amber Setter, I'm faced with adversity, I ask myself, what are the gifts in the experience? You know, my daughter's preschool shut down. I had no childcare. The gifts, I got more time with my daughter. Sometimes maybe a little too much time, and both of us needed a break from each other, but what a gift that she starts kindergarten next year, and right now I got a lot of time with her. It's a challenge, but there's a gift in that. The other thing I want to put in the space for you in terms of what you can control is your actions, your outer self, right? So your outer self is all of the actions that you take, the things that you do, the things that you don't do. And there's a correlation between the two. So back to my personal journey entering into the profession, my inner self said, follow your heart and go for your dream job. Your heart's telling you you're not meant to be an auditor forever. And I took outer action that aligned to that inner truth for me. And that inner truth for me was very different than what everyone around me thought I should do, but it really paid off, right? Followed my heart, got to go live in a castle, found a firm that I worked for 10 years and was a phenomenal experience in that decade, did a lot of really interesting things. And when you do this, when you really pair your inner self and following your heart and align that to your outer action, you ultimately create a very fulfilled destiny, right? That you are the creator of your life, that you get to reclaim your 2020. And the challenge for you is always going to be to get to the stillness, to uncover what do you really need, right? That's why people come to coaching. They quiet out all the noise. They look within inside themselves and what do I need as a person? What's my vision as a leader in this profession, in this organization? So now on the screen, you see a model, and this model is a tool that I use to enhance leadership effectiveness for managers through executives. And so when you think about, I wanted to just share it because it really it lays the groundwork for how do you thrive versus survive. So in this model, they talk about, it comes out of a tool called Leadership Circle Profile, and they say, hey, there's two places that we can choose our behavior from, that we can act from, those outer game things. We can either react, and reaction comes out of fear, or we have our creative competencies, and creative competencies is following our heart, our inner calling, really being anchored in what's best and true for our own self. If you think about this from different lenses, Buddhism might say we come from love or we come from fear. A neuroscientist is going to say, hey, we're either coming from our prefrontal cortex when we're calm and we've done some breathing exercises and we're really emotionally regulated, or our reactive tendencies is our fight or flight lizard brain in the back of our head. So this model really aligns to a lot of different philosophies. But how might it show up for you? So there's the survival or reactive mindset, right? So this is what the survival and reactive mindset looks like. We might feel powerless and helpless right now when there's these circumstances going on and things out of our control. Then we talk to other people and get agreement like, man, it really is so bad. Unemployment's so high and COVID numbers are going up. And oh, it's just terrible. We just like, oh, I'm going to go to the media and get more data to tell me how bad the world is. And everything starts to feel hard and there's a lot of pressure. And in this reactive survival-based way, we only move through life inches at a time. You know, we're just waiting until everything is clear with the rules around sitting for the CPA exam and Prometric versus saying, I'm committed to the exam, I'm going to pass it, I'm going to study now, and I'm going to trust that Prometric is going to open back up because that's my commitment. Thriving, the creative mindset, really different place to come from. And this is really when you shift your energy again, like I know who I am, what's important to me, and I'm coming from that place. So you're really oriented to action rather than explanation or protecting yourself. You don't spend a lot of energy on how things got to be this way. You just instead focus on what's the action to take. There's a circumstance, there's a pothole in the road. How do I get around that pothole? And you become empowered by being the source of your own results. So with this, I want to leave you in that you ultimately get to write the story of you. You have the power to reclaim your 2020, right? My story was that there was a lot of circumstance that told me I wasn't going to get a job in the Silicon Valley. I wasn't going to get a job in accounting because the big five had gone to the big four. And I wasn't going to get a job doing what I love. I had to take this job as an auditor at a prestigious company. EY is prestigious. They shouldn't do that. But a lot of things were like, you should do this. You should do this. This isn't possible. But I just stayed anchored in, hey, like I've got to look in my inner knowing and what is best for me and what do I want to create for my life. So now we're gonna have our last poll for you here to share your thoughts. Given all this, what's the experience that you wanna create in the next year? What will reclaiming your 2020 look like? And it appears that it's active, so I'm hopeful we get to see all of your dreams. Travel, yes, I love that. I've never, ever regretted taking time off to travel. I actually didn't tell you guys this, but I took a year off. I went to one semester of college and took a year off and lived in the south of France, and it was amazing, amazing. So I was old when I started in accounting. Passed my first part of the CPA exam, great. Create stability. A successful sophomore year and empowering others through my leadership roles, I love it. Pass the CPA exam, amen. Take chances, that speaks to my heart. Self-realization, yes, I love this. Study hard and pass the exam on the first time. Doing well in graduate school, fantastic. Persevering no matter what, absolutely. You've got this. Stop overthinking and we'll focus on what I can control. What a gift that you get to know that now. Usually these partners are hiring me because they're overthinking all the time, right? I'm so excited that you guys are like, join the AICPA and took the time today and get this. Building wealth, helping others. Yeah, focusing on how can you be of service, that's really where it's at. It's just amazing. Like, how can I help in the world? How can I help through my business smarts, my big heart? How can I be of service? Exercising, passing the CGMA, awesome. Different things. Making my family proud. Learning new skills. Very, very cool. Gaining more self-confidence and passing the CPA exam. On my website, I talk about my breakdown when I pass the CPA exam if you need a little inspiration. And I've got a couple podcasts out there. There's this individual that created Where Accountants Go, and I've got a couple of them specific to the CPA exam, including how do you pass the exam during a pandemic. So if you want to listen to those. Bake a good sourdough bread. I love it, right? We need those accountants who can create. I saw this really cool picture my accountant made. I'll eat your bread if you want to mail it to me. Just be happy. Beautiful. I talk about also on my website the battle for happiness, right? That it's such a battle because our mind wants to play tricks on us. It's a beautiful thing that we have a lizard brain, right? Like years ago, that kept us safe and protected and made sure a lion didn't eat us, but it's in our way today, right? It's telling us like, be scared of this, be scared of this, be scared of this. And if you notice those thoughts go up, go, oh, like, thanks for telling me that that's a scary thing, but it actually isn't. If I get more grounded, if I do some meditation and I do some breath work, I actually see that I don't need to follow that advice. It's not the right advice for me. So thanks all for sharing. I'm gonna now pass the mic over to Shelly, and she's gonna tell you about the AICPA online mentoring program.
Yes, thank you, Amber. I really appreciate it. And I learned so much from your discussion points as well. And I'm certainly motivated by the last poll everywhere, what all of you are planning to create. So just quick little background on myself. I'm also a CPA, and I was working for a firm in public accounting for a little over 5 years prior to joining the AICPA. And one thing I wish I had before making this the choice to enter public accounting was a mentor. When I was a student, I was constantly looking for guidance. I was the first CPA, the first person even in business school in my family. A lot of my family is in the medical field. So I really didn't know where to go. I was seeking advice from anyone I could, but I never had a steady person along my journey, and I wish that I had. And so I was super eager to get involved with the AICPA online mentoring program. So if you can just click to the next slide, Amber, thanks. So I'll touch a little bit more on that as a member benefit here, but I just think it's really important to touch briefly on the differences between a mentor, a coach, and a sponsor from a performance management standpoint. So you may actually have all three at the same time. along your lifelong career journey, or maybe you'll just have one at a time, or maybe two at a time, but they are three different things. So a mentor helps with career development and kind of navigating the workplace. A coach is more of an instructional or training type relationship, often could be regarding a specific skill or a specific milestone you're trying to reach. And a sponsor intentionally talks about you or brags about you to help you gain visibility for performance advancement. So typically, mentors and coaches are either in your organization or external. They can be either, and you could possibly have both. While by nature, a sponsor is almost always within your same organization, since they're trying to elevate you within that organization. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly. And so this is where the AICPA online mentoring platform comes in. So we at the AICPA want to make sure that you have a mentor as you navigate your journey into accounting, whatever that path looks like for you. And so as Evan mentioned, this is a student member benefit that you have free access to this platform. And you'll be paired with an objective perspective and a more experienced mentor that is an AICPA member that can give you insight about challenges and opportunities, and they can serve as a sounding board for you as you navigate your career. The online platform is basically like Match.com for mentoring relationships. It's super easy to use, and so you'll complete a profile which asks questions about your interests, your background, your goals, and it'll automatically match you with a mentor that kind of has those same demographics, those same interests, those same goals. So for example, if your goal is to be an audit partner, or if your goal is to be a CFO of a Fortune 500 company, so they'll match you with a mentor, and then you as a mentee are encouraged to reach out to the mentor that you feel most connected with and invite them to create a mentoring relationship. Or you can search within the system if you don't feel particularly drawn to any of the mentors that it automatically matches you with. So the online program clearly facilitates mentoring connections with young emerging leaders like yourselves and connects you with more experienced professionals in a very positive way. Again, something I wish that I had access to as a student, someone to help me kind of guide me along my path and give me an objective viewpoint on where to go in my career. Again, it's an exclusive AICPA member benefit for professional members and student affiliate members. And I hope you'll take advantage of this incredible opportunity to foster fruitful mentoring relationships. If you need further information, the website is listed up there on the top right, aicpa.org/mentoring, or you can reach out to myself and just kind of pop around and find yourselves a mentor.
Thanks so much, Shelley. It sounds like an amazing program, and I just want to, as a professional that has had a variety of mentors in my life, it's really helpful at times to have people external of your organization or at different levels of their career to get some perspective. And I've got mentors that maybe I just reach out to them like once a year, like, hey, you know, I'm stuck, and they're very there and resourceful. So, and I've had other people that I've like really worked through things in a, you know, a very concentrated and focused way and talk more frequently. So I'm a big proponent of having mentors, and I think it's an amazing resource that the AICPA is offering to you. I have now on the screen just some, you know, ways of connecting with me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm often posting if I'm doing different webinars or where I might be speaking. I have my website. You can read about my breakdown when I pass the CPA exam, or email me. You know, I want to be of service to all of you. Again, I'm so grateful that you came, that you're the leaders of our future, of our profession, that you have such initiative to join the AICPA already so soon in your career, and to make the time for endeavors like this, because it's really an investing activity. We know that we could invest money and that it pays us interest and dividends. You've invested your life energy that I hope this presentation will give you interest and dividends and help you grow as a leader. I'll just stop and pause, and Evan, if you see any questions in there that I can address, I'd be happy to do so.
Yes, the first question is, where is the article on your website about the CPA exam journey?
Okay, so if you go to my about page and you scroll down to the bottom, I say how I got into professional coaching.
Great, thank you. And the next question is, how do we listen to your podcasts?
That if you Google search where accountants go, there's an individual named Mark Goldman, and he's interviewed a variety of leaders in our profession. And he's got, I mean, it's great. There's so many good podcasts on there that you can listen where he's interviewed people about their careers in accounting. And when you go to that, if you search my name, there it'll pop up the one specific to the CPA exam. So I do one about passing the exam during a pandemic, and I also do one about with one of my friends and colleagues over at Intend to Lead that does leadership development in the profession, where we talk about all the non-technical aspects of the exam. And to the person who wants to pass the CGMA, that will help you too. That one is really about mindset and doing different things like visualization that are, again, all the non-technical stuff that are critical to passing a professional exam.
Thanks. And then there's two more questions here, and they're both for Shelley. The first one is, will we only have access to the mentoring program while we're students?
No, so the mentoring program is completely open to any AICPA member as well as student affiliate. So if you become an AICPA member after you graduate and are entering into the profession, you can also find a mentor. Once you've had 5 years of experience in the profession, you can become a mentor to someone who's seeking a mentoring relationship as well.
Great. And then the next question is, I submitted a mentor request but haven't heard back. How do I get a mentor? Maybe you could, Shelley, explain a little bit more after they've done the match, how they get in contact with a potential mentor.
Sure, of course. So once you complete your profile and your questionnaire, you should get automatically paired with some certain mentors. You should reach out to those mentors or the mentor that you feel most connected with to start the relationship. Or if you don't feel connected with any of the suggested mentors, you can search within the program any of our mentors, and you can look at their profile and their background, and you can reach out to them directly to initiate the relationship.
Great, that is the last question. So I just want to take this time and thank everybody for attending. Thank you, Amber, and thank you, Shelley, for the informative presentation today.
Thanks, Evan.
Yeah, thank you, Evan, and to the entire team at the AICPA.